All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever really stopped to think about how a big company actually works? It's so easy to picture it as these separate boxes. You've got finance in one corner, marketing in another, but the real secret, the real magic, is how all those pieces are connected. So today, we're going to pop the hood and take a tour of that business engine to see how it all fits together.
And that's really the big idea for today. It's not just about looking at these things as separate school subjects. It's about seeing the system. It's about how the money, the data, the people, and the strategy, they're all in this constant dance, influencing each other every single second.
So to really get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 4 core systems. Think of it like this. You've got an all-access pass for our guided tour of the machine that makes any business tick. Doesn't matter if it's a tiny startup in a garage or a massive global corporation.
First up on our tour, we have to start with the universal language of business, money. This is it. It's how we keep score, how we spot trouble on the horizon, and how we map out where we're going next.
Okay, so you've probably heard of a balance sheet, right? It's just a list of what a company owns versus what it owes. But here's a really cool trick that analysts use, the common size balance sheet. Instead of looking at these giant, intimidating dollar figures, you convert every single item into a percentage of the total assets. And just like that, boom, you can suddenly see the skeleton of the company, its actual structure, no matter how big or small it is.
Think about it. If you're just looking at the raw dollars, trying to compare a giant corporation to a little startup is like comparing an elephant to a mouse. It's kind of pointless. But when you switch to percentages, you're looking at the blueprint. You can instantly see how they're built. Maybe one company is fueled by a ton of debt to grow fast, while another is playing it super safe. That simple percentage tells you a whole strategic story.
But here's a question for you. Can a single number, one that looks perfectly healthy, actually be hiding a big problem? Let's take a look at something called the Debt Service Coverage Ratio, or DSCR for short. All it really does is measure if a company's making enough money to pay its bills. So, a high number should be great, right? Well, not so fast.
So check this out. Company A has a DSCR of 5. That's pretty solid. But look at Company B. Theirs is a 6. Even better, right? But hold on, here's the catch. Company B also has a bunch of significant asset write-offs, and that is a major red flag. It's a sign that even though their income looks good right now, some of their big past investments are going bad. And this just proves the most important rule in finance. Context is absolutely everything.
And the DSCR is just one dial on the dashboard. There are a bunch of others we look at. You've got the dividend payout ratio. That tells you how much cash is actually going back to the owners. Then there are turnover ratios, which are all about efficiency. How fast are they selling their stuff? Are they getting the most bang for their buck from their factories and equipment? Each one of these ratios is like a different clue, helping us piece together the real story of the company's health.
All right, so we've covered the language of money. Now let's pull back a bit and talk about our next core system, data. The truth is, almost every single decision in business is a bet against uncertainty. And data is the tool we use to stack the odds in our favor, to move from pure guesswork to making smart, informed choices.
So how on earth can a cricket player's scores teach us anything about business strategy? I know it sounds totally random, but stick with me here. It's actually a fantastic way to grasp some really important statistical ideas that apply to, well, everything, from sales performance to factory output.
So here they are, the raw scores from a batsman's last 5 games. Just look at them. Can you tell me much from that? Probably not, right? It's just a bunch of numbers, a jumble. That, right there, is raw data. But now look what happens when we chart them out. Suddenly, a pattern jumps out at you. You can see that most of his scores are clustered right there in that average zone. And the big insight here isn't just about the average score. It's about the consistency, the spread. A player, or say a salesperson, who is consistent is predictable. And let me tell you, in the world of business, predictability is worth its weight in gold. And of course, we use data for much bigger questions. You have things like hypothesis testing, which is really just a fancy way of asking, is this thing we believe actually true? For example, did that expensive new ad campaign actually boost sales, or was it a waste of money? Then you have confidence intervals, which are all about being realistic. Instead of giving one single, probably wrong number for a forecast, you give a range. It's a way of admitting, hey, the future is uncertain, but here's our best educated guess.
Okay, so we've got the money and we've got the data. But honestly, none of that means a thing without the most complicated, the most challenging, and the most critical part of the entire engine, the people. This is where it all happens.
This is where the plans are born, where teams are inspired, and where the actual work gets done.
Now, at the core of managing all these people is this classic time-tested framework, and it's a cycle that never stops. First, you plan where you want to go. Then you organize everything you need to get there. You staff the team with the right people, direct them on what to do, and then you control the results. Basically, you check your work to see if you're on track, and once you do that, the whole cycle starts right over again.
Let's zoom in on that first piece, planning, because it's not as simple as it sounds. You've really got 3 levels. Way up at the 30,000-foot view, you have strategic planning. That's the big picture, long-term dream. Then you have tactical plans, which bring that dream down to earth for each department. And finally, you get to the ground level with operational plans, the nitty-gritty, day-to-day tasks that make it all happen. The key? All 3 have to be perfectly in sync. Now, when it comes to leading those teams, there's no single magic formula. You've got different styles. An autocratic leader is very top-down, makes the decisions, which can be super efficient. On the other hand, a democratic leader brings the team into the decision-making process. That can lead to amazing ideas and really strong buy-in. You know, the truly great leaders, they know how to switch between styles depending on what the situation calls for. And the glue that holds all of this management stuff together is communication. But man, is it easy to mess up. We think it's just about the words we say, but it's so much more. It's body language, it's tone of voice, it's the fact that the same word can mean different things to different people. And we all have our own biases filtering everything we hear. Really, the best, maybe the only antidote, is what they call active listening. Not just waiting for your turn to talk, but actually trying to understand what the other person is saying. All right, we're on the last leg of our tour. This is where we connect all the dots. We've looked at money, we've looked at data, and we've looked at people. So now let's zoom all the way out and see the systems that wire it all together, and the strategic arena where the game is actually played. You know, for a lot of companies, there's this one ultimate goal, this sort of holy grail, and it's the number one single, totally integrated system where every piece of information flows everywhere it needs to go seamlessly. That's the dream of something called Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP. Just picture it. Finance, HR, the sales team, manufacturing, all of them on the same page in real time. It's mind-bogglingly complex to build, but if you can pull it off, the efficiency gains are just massive. So that ERP stuff is all about getting your own house in order. But businesses also need systems to face the outside world. That's where things like a CRM, a customer relationship management system, come in. That's your brain for every single interaction you have with a customer. And then you have SCM, or supply chain management. That's all about managing the crazy complex journey of a product from raw material to the customer's hands and making sure that chain doesn't break when things go wrong. So what kind of jungle are all these businesses living in? Well, competition isn't just an on or off switch. It's a whole spectrum. At one extreme end, you've got perfect competition. That's where you have tons of companies all selling the exact same thing. And at the complete other end, you've got a pure monopoly. Just one company holds all the cards. The reality is, most businesses find themselves living somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. Let's make this super simple. Perfect competition? Think of a farmer's market. Lots of stalls all selling, tomatoes. Monopolistic competition, that's your local street filled with coffee shops. They all sell coffee, but each one tries to be a little different. And oligopoly, think about the major airlines. There are only a handful of huge companies that dominate. And a monopoly? Well, for most of us, that's the company that provides our electricity. And where you land on this map basically dictates your entire game plan.
So if there's one thing to take away from our tour today, it's this. It is all connected. A company's financial health directly impacts how it can invest in its people. The insights you get from data should be the fuel for your strategy, and your position in the market determines every single move you make. We've seen the whole engine, from the smallest gear to the biggest system. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you've seen how all the parts fit together, what part of the business engine are you going to look at differently?